All of my father's work had its genesis really in his PhD. Ostensibly, he was studying Thomas Nash, an Elizabethan satirist.
So the first thing Marshall did was he realized that if he wanted to talk about the rhetoric of Nash, he had to go back and find out everything from the beginning. We all should do it that way. You read one text, and that gives you a set of questions. Where did this come from and what did it mean? And you have to keep going back and back and back.
Looking at the entire tradition took him back to Greece and Rome and the study of the trivium, the ancient intellectual establishment, which hadn't been done before.
And the trivium was basically logic, rhetoric, and grammar. Grammar was the study of language. Rhetoric was how to present yourself, your ideas, your insights. And of course, logic was logic. McLuhan came to believe that the history of culture was the history of the ongoing struggle between these three alternate ways of looking at things. McLuhan was fascinated by grammar and rhetoric.
Grammarians weren't just people interested in things like parts of speech and syntax and punctuation, but they looked at the world as a book. So he trained himself as a grammarian right there.
It's almost as if he shared the medieval notion of the two books. One book was the written book, the Bible. The other was the book of the universe, where you could also read that book because the creator of both books had invested them with that coherence. And of course, when he became a Catholic, that was solidified. Great philosopher of Catholicism, Thomas Aquinas, says faith is consistent with reason.
He found in Aquinas a sort of kindred spirit, another grammarian, a man who took all knowledge, all learning as his province.
Thomas Aquinas says, trust the authority of the senses. And then there's a kind of almost medieval notion of the five senses as working together in a kind of workshop to recreate reality in the mind of the individual. So McLuhan always believed that if you really listened and saw and felt, you could perceive correctly.
A Catholic has some assurance that all parts of the world will bear inspection, that they're all good.
He was a literary man primarily. His interest in communications was secondary. Once he got involved with communications, he got fascinated by it. It was like the tentacles spreading out in all directions. And he saw the interrelationship of everything. He made the Understanding Media Group. He had representatives from the different disciplines.
He was interested in other disciplines. Now that kind of thing has become terribly fashionable now, but it wasn't fashionable then.
We met most days in the museum cafeteria. People would be there and a phrase would come out and boom, it would be taken and seized by everyone. Nobody took anybody else's ideas. We just took every idea and used them, misused them, played with them. Pretty much the way the surrealists would do in art. McLuhan was the absolute center of a group of people doing that.
All of it really crystallizes in 7 or 8 issues of explorations that McLuhan and his friend, the anthropologist Ted Carpenter, put out.
He's writing about Linus Pauling in chemistry, and Werner Heisenberg in physics, and Cervantes and jazz music, J.Z. Young in biology, Panofsky in art history, about Walter Long, and quoting every scholarly book on every subject.
In those articles, he finally, I think, articulates fully that all technologies are languages. Language itself is the supreme technology that almost gives you the entree to all the other disciplines and languages and technologies.
The people in those disciplines thought he was playing fast and loose because he had no credentials in any of those areas.
Any specialist is going to see to it that his specialty is protected against any invasion from any quarter. They've got a very good thing. They've taken a long time to acquire this specialist skill, and they don't see why they should yield 1 inch to people with different methods.